Well, that was exciting. Game one of the wild card playoff in St. Louis goes the Phillies' way, down 2-0 in the ninth. Phillies score 6 runs to win 6-3. And they put a stat on the TV that said the Cardinals were something like 93-0 when leading by 2 or more runs going in the playoffs, in their playoff history, which they've obviously been in the playoffs just about every year that I can remember. When they're up 2 or more runs in the ninth, going to the ninth or in the ninth, they were 93-0 going into today. So, you know who who ended that streak, and a little revenge from 2011. As we remember, in 2011, the Phillies lost the last playoff game they played prior to today to the Cardinals at home, 1-0 in that Roy Halladay game. And if only the wind was blowing out that night, Phillies would have won that game. Raul Ibanez and Utley hit 2 balls that would have been out any other night. But that's baseball, you know. That's the beauty of baseball. That's the beauty of the playoffs. That's why, you know, regardless of whether it's the last seed in, I just said, let's get in, you know, give us a shot. I like the matchup against the Cardinals. It wasn't an easy game. It was, you know, a crazy finish, but I like the matchup on paper. And the Phillies are up 1-0, and, you know, it's not done yet, but, you know, you win one more game, you win the series, and then you play the Braves. And, you know, regardless of what happens, you won a playoff series for the first time, you know, making the playoffs in 11 years. That's what makes it fun, you know, even though my heart was in the throat quite often in that ninth inning. Oh, my goodness. Yes, it is a Season of the Fan video for the Eagles, but I did want to start it with the little Phillies chatter because it's the playoffs, man, and both these teams are playing teams named the Cardinals this weekend, and hopefully we can get some wins against teams named the Cardinals this weekend. I am remiss that I did not make a video last week leading into the game against the Jaguars. A very good win by the Eagles. I believe it was, 29-21 or whatever that final score was. The Eagles won a game in the slop and the rain, and they came from behind. Speaking of coming from behind, you know, the Eagles were down 14-0 in that game. Came back to win. Great effort all around. Defense played amazing. Again, Hassan Reddick is your reigning NFC Defensive Player of the Week. Temple Tough came back home, came to the Eagles, and he goes up against a team that he's familiar with, right? He got the team that drafted him in Philly when the draft was in Philly, of course, that great season of 2017, and the great season that started and ended on the Art Museum steps. So, of course, the Eagles won the Super Bowl that year, but Hassan Reddick was drafted that year out of Temple by the Arizona Cardinals, and he has been, last few weeks, he's been lights out. He's been all over, you know, and they're doing with him what I was hoping they would do with him. Let him be a pass rusher. Let him create that havoc, right? Get to the quarterback and do what he's great at doing, getting those strip sacks, which you saw last week. And there's a chance he could do it again this week. We're going to talk more about the Cardinals game. I do hope to have a video out. It's a later game on Sunday, so that's good. So I hope to have a video out as well as the Festive 4 later this Sunday for that game. But we're going to talk a little about that Jaguar win. And listen, I mean, the Jaguars came into this week, I believe, the #1 ranked rush defense. And the Eagles ran for over 200 yards. That's 2 straight seasons where they played a team at home who came into the season, or came into that week, the #1 rushing defense in the league, and the Eagles made them look silly. Last year it was, I believe, what was it, the Saints, and the Eagles ran all over them. This season it's the Jaguars at home. And listen, you know, you got people out there who are poo-pooing these wins, like, the Detroit game, the Jaguars. Listen, the Jaguars are going to be an improved team this year. They're a good team. They were 2-1 coming into the game. They had a great win, their first road win in forever, the week prior against the Chargers, who could be a playoff team this year in LA in that stadium, SoFi Stadium. And they played dominant in that game. And, Herbert is the Chargers quarterback. He's pretty good, right? Now, I know it wasn't a tremendous eye-popping day by Jalen Hurts, but he did just enough. He did what you had to do to win the game, and they ran the ball, and they had success. And against that defense, they were able to run the ball against, and that's where they had success, so that's where they leaned on it. And it was a really rainy, sloppy day, and you saw the Jaguars, basically the whole game, they were trying to pet, and every time, how many turnovers did Lawrence have? Was it like 4 or 5 or whatever it is, combined turnovers with that interception by Bradbury? And the Eagles had to overcome a lot in that game. They overcame a 14-0 deficit. They overcame injuries. 2 guys on the offensive line go down, and they don't miss a beat. Darius Slay was out, didn't return. So you're already missing your number 1 corner and 2 of your starting linemen, and you still find a way to win. That's what the good teams do. How many times do we see it week after week? When you're an upper echelon team, you win those games. You overcome things to win those games, and you win those battles up front. And you're able to get wins. And it's all about win. It's all about winning. I don't care who you beat, when you beat them, where you beat them. It's about collecting as many wins as you can so that you can have a higher seed when the playoffs come around, so you can get that home field advantage, right, that we enjoyed back in 2017. The 2 home games to win and got to the Super Bowl and won a Super Bowl. And again, I'm not calling them a Super Bowl team even though they're 4-0 right now. It's looking really good. There'll be adversity that they have to handle. Not every game is going to go smoothly. It's nice that they're the last undefeated team in the league going into this game at Arizona. But, there are going to be times where they're going to have to overcome some adversity. All teams do. I mean, you could be the GOAT right now in Tampa, and they have to overcome adversity, right? Listen, it happens. I mean, I'm looking at some of these other teams and some of these other quarterbacks. They put a stat out there yesterday on the slot fest that Thursday night game was. All these quarterbacks that changed teams this season and what their combined record is and all this and that. I mean, you look at some of that and you're like, what in the world? I mean, Russell Wilson looks like a completely different player right now. And I am just so thankful. And there was a lot of talk, and there was a lot of heat with that smoke this offseason that the Eagles were in on trying to trade for Russell Wilson. And obviously he goes to Denver. Now look, I don't know. Maybe if he does come here, it's different. It's a better offense, better weapons, better offensive line, better coaching. Maybe it's a different situation if he's here rather than Denver, but he just looks like a shell of himself. And that offense looks absolutely pathetic right now, Denver. They lost last night at home to the Colts. Colts got 12 points and they won that game. That's just pathetic. So I look at the situation that we have in front of us, and I'm real happy to this point with the play of Jalen Hurts, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. I wanted to see this season, I wanted to see Pro Bowl caliber play by our quarterback. They gave him the weapon. He has more than enough weapons. It's up to him to do it, and so far he's answered the bell. And I'm glad he's our quarterback. I really am. I think he works well with Sirianni and vice versa, and the coaching staff for the offense. I think it's so far through 4 games, you're seeing the difference when he has the same voices in his ear that he had a year ago that he never had. Every year, they showed the list, I believe it was last week or the week before, of all the different offensive coordinators that he had since his Alabama days. Every year it was a different offensive coordinator. Came into the NFL, it was Doug Peterson's staff, and it was Sirianni's staff, but now it stayed the same. And I know, look, if you're going to have success, you're going to lose coordinators, and it could happen this offseason, but let's just talk about the now. He has the same voice in his head, and you see the difference. And yes, he put in the work in the offseason to get better, to be better at making those reads, throwing those window passes, to throw the receivers open, to do those type of, some of those throws even last week, even when they weren't throwing the ball a whole ton, you still saw a couple of those touch passes that were made that a year ago he probably doesn't even attempt. And I know there was a drop ball by Goddard at one point that would have been, I believe, a first down or even a touchdown. But the passes have been there, and it is nice. And I said this to some of my friends. It is nice to have wide receivers who can get open. And even when they're not open, they fight for the ball. They go up and they get it. You know, if you're a defensive back or a safety or a linebacker, you're going to have to fight with them to get the ball. And in years past, we didn't have that. We had the Aguilars, we had the J-Jaws, we had the Ragers of the world that just wouldn't fight for that ball. And now you have Smith and you have A.J. Brown. And look, I mean, they go up and they go for that football, and that's real important. That's, you know, how many of these teams we watch every year that have success on offense, and they have these receivers, and we kept saying, oh man, if we could just get these type of receivers, if we could just have that. Well, finally we do, and I hope they stay healthy. I really do. Because it's special when you have receivers like that. And again, it's not taking any shade away from Jalen, because he's making it work too. This doesn't work if he's not on point. He's on point. The receiver's on point. Last week you had a great game, career day, rushing day by Miles Sanders. And what is that, right? That's a complete offense. That's an offense that looks, and if you're going to try to defend one or two guys, this other guy's going to be, okay, you want to do this against the pass? We can run the ball. All right, you want to put 8 in the box to stop the run? We're going to put it over the top. Make some big plays. That's what the great offenses do in this league, and we see it every week, every year, right? And now we're seeing it as Eagle fans through the first 4 games, going into Week 5 against the Cardinals. I'm excited. I really am. Listen, I mean, 4-0, that's just icing on the cake. I'm excited with how this team has played, how they've looked. You know real when you see real. And I don't think it matters if they played the Jaguars or the Packers or the Buccaneers or whoever it is that they would play. This offense is going to work against anybody. It just is. They're that talented. They have that much at the skill position where they can play against any kind of defense you want to throw at them. You know, and listen, about the schedule, the Eagles don't put the schedule out. The schedule makers do. They're 4-0. You know, how many weeks do we see winnable games by better teams that they lose? The Chiefs lost at Indianapolis a few weeks ago, right? It happens. You're going to have games where you're playing against, lesser opponents, and you don't have your A game and you lose. It happens to the best teams. You know, it's a week-to-week deal, right? The Eagles have played 4 different teams, and they've come away with 4 different victories. And they found different ways to win these games, right? And there were some good wins mixed in. I mean, that Viking game, listen, I mean, the Eagles are the only team that beat them so far. You know, the Lions game, that's a week 1 game. It's on the road. Don't really know what the lines are going to be. All right, their defense isn't very good right now. But going into that game, you just don't know what you're going to expect out of an opponent, particularly it's on the road. The next week, it was Minnesota in a primetime game. The following week, you're going against your former quarterback in Carson Wentz on the road, even though it was kind of like a home game in Landover. And then last week, you're at home in the slop rain against a good Jaguar team. Look, the Eagles may have, had a lot of success against that defense running the ball. That's a good defense. That's a defense that takes the ball away. They make plays. It's just the Eagles' defense was that much better. And the Eagles' offense was that much better. You know why? Because the Eagles are a damn good team. That's why. That's why they walked away with a win. Even though in the rain and in, unpleasant conditions, they still were able to find a way to get a win and improve their record to 4-0. And it's another conference win. Out of conference, but it could be a tiebreaker. I mean, if Jacksonville beats Dallas, let's say later in the year, and the Eagles already got that win against Jacksonville, right? So that could be a tiebreak situation. You just never know. The Jaguars could be one of those surprise teams this year, right? You never know. You don't look at things and say, oh, this is an easy win. If you win, all right, it's earned. You win, and you move to the next week, and you keep taking it, right? The bottom line is you got to win more games than you lose. Okay? If you want to make the playoffs, if you want to fight for a division title, you got to win more games than you lose. And I know it's early. We're only a month in. But you still got two other teams in this division, in Dallas and the Giants, that are somehow 3-1 as well. Both of them. So the Eagles have to keep winning to stay ahead of these guys, right? I'm happy with what I've seen so far on offense. I'm happy with what I've seen so far on defense. I would like to see more on special teams. The return game just hasn't been there, and I'm still not really impressed with our punter. But at this point through 4 games, if the complaint is the return game and the punter, I think we're doing okay so far. And indeed they are. They're 4-0. They're looking dominant. They have a winnable game, even though it's on the road. I know it's a place that they haven't won yet in that stadium so far. But it's a winnable game against a Cardinal team. And they have a chance. They have a chance to go to 5-0, and you know, you take it from there. It's a tremendous start, and I think a lot of credit also goes to the coaching staff. I mean, listen, we didn't know what we had in Nick Sirianni when he came in. Who knew what we had with Nick Sirianni when he came in? But he steadied the ship last season after a rough start. They made the playoffs, and some people said, the last wild card, blah, blah, blah. It's experience. It taught some of these young players like a Jalen Hurts what you have to do to win in this league, and that you have to get to that next level if you want to win in the playoffs. I'm happy they had that playoff success. You know what? Because it gave their younger players like Hurts playoff experience. It also gave the coaching staff playoff experience. Okay, this is what you got to do. You got to raise the level all over to win in the playoffs. Okay, particularly against teams at that time like a Tampa Bay, a defending champion in their building. Okay, they didn't have it that day. This is the level you have to play at. You have to get better. It's experience. It's like I'm saying this year with the Phillies. It's experience for the young players, for the kindergarten of this team, right? Which some of them came up with some big moments today. But it's experience, and I'd rather have that than not, particularly with young players. Now, listen, 2017 was just one of those years. Everything worked, everything went well, and they went all the way. You're not going to have that all the time. That was a real, thank goodness, but it was a real anomaly type of deal, right? Because it was still a coaching staff that was in their second year. You had a quarterback in his second year. You had a lot of different, parts that weren't quite there, but you also had some veterans. And I think one of the important things they did that offseason was bringing guys like a Blunt, like a Long, and other guys along the way, Robinson, some of those other guys from the Ravens that won Super Bowl, that won titles, that knew what it took to play at that next level. And the Eagles, let's not forget, do have players on still from that team that are playing right now that know what it takes to play at that next level and what you got to do, how you have to prepare your body, how you have to prepare at practice, how you have to prepare each week if you want to be at that level at the end of the season. And that's an important thing. It really is. And the Eagles have that. And they have a lot of really good leadership on this team. And look, it's easy when you're 4-0. Everything's smooth sailing, everything's going well. But I still think they have a really good leadership and potential to do some really good things this season. I'm sorry it's getting dark, but, what can I do? We're in a good spot. We're in a good spot when you look at where this organization is, when it comes to the coaching staff, when it comes to the ownership, when it comes to the general manager and the powers that be. They're going to put this team in the best position to have success. And realistically, if we stop and think about it, and I'm not going to go crazy with this, but when I look around this division and I see some of the other teams in this division alone that have had trouble at staying at a level of play, the Eagles have pretty much run laps around a lot of these teams in our division. Let's not forget the type of job that they're doing in Washington and Daniel Snyder and company with that franchise. And I know that Dallas has had some semblance of success with making the playoffs and division titles and whatnot. They don't win in the playoffs. They don't win in the playoffs. They have a lot of me guys on that team. They have a lot of stat guys on that team. They don't win. The coaching staff, how many coaches have they been through? that franchise, they've made the playoffs a lot, but you got to win in the playoffs. And the Eagles have done a lot more winning in the playoffs since Jeffrey Lurie took over as the owner and steward of the franchise than Dallas has won in the playoffs, than Washington has won in the playoffs. And you can say, all right, the Giants won 2 Super Bowls, and yes, they do, and you tip that. They did win 2 Super Bowls against the Patriots, but they haven't had that sustained success. The Eagles have enjoyed that period of success, more so than any other team in this division since Jeffrey Lurie's taken over as the owner of the team. And I think we are lucky to have that. When you look at the instability of a lot of franchises, not just some of the other franchises within the division, but some of these other franchises around the league, and you see it's just night and day with where the Eagles are compared to what those other teams are. And we're lucky to have that. We are. And let's face it, I mean, the moves that Howie's made, the trades, dealing with this little salary cap that they had to bring in this type of talent and these players to enjoy a 4-0 start to the season, it's a tremendous thing. And I know Howie takes a lot of grief in this town, but he's one of the best. I got to admit it. When it comes to trading, when it comes to managing that salary cap, bringing in players, and now he's learning how to draft. It's nice to get guys from Alabama in those power conferences. It's nice to do that. Those guys help. Bring in those Georgia dogs. All right? Yeah, it's nice when you get that top-tier talent from those teams. I'm not saying you can never win with players from other lower-level, colleges, because obviously some of the greats that ever played at some of those lower-level schools, but you're still taking a chance. You know what you have with some of the blue bloods. And it's nice that now in the more recent time that they've drafted those kids, right, from those colleges. Now you still have to coach them up, and that's what this coaching staff has been able to do. The fruits of the labor, you're seeing it week after week. And, it's great to have that. It really is. So the Eagles go into this week 4-0. They're taking on Arizona, as I said, in Arizona. They haven't won in Arizona since 2001. Then again, the Phillies haven't made the playoffs since 2011, and now they did, and they're up 1-0. So you can turn around something from a negative and make it a positive. Positive thoughts. We'll get into that game this week, and like I said, I'll be back again at some point, probably Sunday. We'll do the Festive Four, and we'll try to break down the Cardinals game of football. The baseball team's playing the Cardinals too. But we're talking about the football Cardinals, right, from Arizona, that at one point were in St. Louis many, many years ago. Also in Chicago many years ago. But anyhow, we will hope for the best as I'm close to getting home. I was out at FWAT, Fingers, Wings, and Other Things, if you're not familiar, watching Game 1 of the playoffs for the Phillies. And victorious night tonight. And we're hoping for a victorious night tomorrow night from the Phillies, which is Saturday night. And we're hoping for a victorious Sunday. Hey, maybe the Phillies don't even have to play on Sunday. Maybe they sweep. Bring the brooms out tomorrow night with those squirrel lovers in St. Louis. Right? A little 2011 reference for all of you out there. Right? We're going to forget about that damn squirrel. And then we're going to hope for a big win for our Birds again on Sunday and continue this undefeated thing. Boy, it's been fun so far, right? So I'm pulling into my driveway now, and I'm going to bid you all farewell for now. But I will be back. Now you can't say it's dark. It's spooky out. Ooh, Halloween. Oh, you weren't expecting that, were you? I know you can't see me, huh? Anyhow, I will see you all again soon. Maybe we'll do something within the life too this weekend. We'll see. All right, everyone, take care. And what do you always got to do? Leave those likes. Hit the subscribe button if you already haven't done so, and make sure you hit the bell icon as well. Bell icon, right? Phillies, right? Bell icon, so you get notified to all future content from yours truly. All right, everyone, go Birds as always. Go Phillies. And I will see you in the next one.